Mama Ngozi owned a modest shop in Aja Market where she sold fish. She was a big woman. Her round belly jiggled slightly as she walked, and her arms were thick from years of lifting heavy baskets of fish. But the smell, the overwhelming sour odor, followed her everywhere she went. Some thought it was from handling fish all day. Others whispered about it, and many refused to buy from her. Even though she bathed every day and scrubbed herself with soap, the smell never left. Her daughter, Ngozi, was the most affected by it. Ngozi was 13, just starting to become aware of the world around her and how others saw her. She loved her mother, but couldn't stand the smell that filled their small house when Mama Ngozi came home from the market. As soon as she walked through the door, the air in their little home turned heavy with the sharp, sour scent. "Mama, why do you smell like that?" Ngozi asked one evening, holding her nose as her mother stepped inside. "My dear, I've bathed. I use soap, but it doesn't go away," Mama Ngozi said softly, her smile sad. Ngozi wasn't convinced. "You need to scrub harder or change your soap. People are going to think you don't take care of yourself." Mama Ngozi simply nodded, too tired from the day to argue, but deep down she knew the truth, that no amount of soap or scrubbing would take the smell away. It had nothing to do with the fish she sold. At school, Ngozi avoided talking about her home life because she didn't want anyone to know that her mother was the fish seller from Aja Market. None of her friends ever saw her mother, and Ngozi did everything she could to keep it that way. Every morning, Ngozi made sure to leave for school before Mama Ngozi could walk her to the gate. She didn't want anyone in her neighborhood to see them together. She never invited friends over to her house either, afraid that the smell in the house would give everything away. "Mama, please don't pick me up from school," Ngozi would beg whenever her mother offered. "I can walk home by myself." Mama Ngozi would sigh, sensing her daughter's discomfort but not fully understanding it. "You're still young, Ngozi. Let me walk with you sometimes. I worry about you." But Ngozi wouldn't hear it. She would leave in a hurry, hoping no one at school would ever connect her to the smelly woman from the market. One day, however, everything changed. It was a hot afternoon, and the school bell had just rung to signal the end of classes. Ngozi packed her books quickly and tried to slip out of the school gate unnoticed. But as soon as she stepped outside, she froze. There, standing at the gate, was Mama Ngozi, waiting to pick her up. Ngozi's heart sank. She hadn't told her mother to come. "Mama!" Ngozi hissed as she approached. "I told you not to come." "I just wanted to make sure you got home safely," Mama Ngozi replied, smiling warmly. Ngozi's stomach twisted with embarrassment, but before she could say anything else, her friend Ada ran up to them, waving a notebook. "Gozi, wait! You forgot your book in class!" Ada stopped suddenly as she got close. Her face wrinkled in disgust, and she took a step back, covering her nose. "Oh my goodness! What is that smell?" Ada asked, looking around. Gozi felt like the ground had disappeared beneath her. She grabbed the notebook quickly and muttered, "It's nothing. Let's go." But Ada wasn't done. She glanced at Mama Ngozi and then at Ngozi, realization dawning on her. She didn't say anything, but her expression said enough. Ngozi hurried away, pulling her mother along, but it was too late. She knew the damage had been done. The next day at school, Ngozi could feel it the moment she walked through the gate. Something was different. As she made her way to class, she could hear the whispers, the giggles, and the quiet snickering coming from the corners of the hallway. She tried to ignore it at first, but it became impossible when she overheard a group of girls talking as she passed by. "Did you hear? Ngozi's mom smells so bad. I saw her yesterday and I almost threw up," one girl said, laughing with her friends. "I knew it! I've seen her around the market before. That's why Ngozi never talks about her," another girl added. Ngozi's face burned with shame. She tried to walk faster, but the whispers seemed to follow her everywhere she went. By lunchtime, everyone in school seemed to know. She could hear students laughing behind her back, calling her names like Fish Girl and Stinky. Some even held their noses when she passed by, mocking her cruelly. Ngozi's heart broke. She had never felt so humiliated in her life. She had worked so hard to keep her mother a secret, and now everyone knew. When the school day finally ended, Ngozi rushed home, her eyes filled with tears. She stormed into the house, throwing her bag on the floor. "Mama, why do you have to smell like that?" Ngozi shouted, unable to hold back her frustration. "You're ruining everything. Everyone at school is laughing at me because of you." Mama Ngozi, who had been preparing dinner in the kitchen, stopped what she was doing and looked at her daughter. She was silent for a moment, her eyes sad and filled with pain. "Ngozi, come sit with me," she said quietly, sitting down at the kitchen table. "There's something I need to tell you." Ngozi wiped her eyes and sat down, still fuming, but curious about what her mother had to say. Mama Ngozi took a deep breath, her voice soft but full of emotion. "Ngozi, you're old enough now to know the truth," she began. "I wasn't always like this. I wasn't always big, and I didn't always smell like this." Ngozi blinked in surprise. She had never heard her mother talk about her life before she was born. Mama Ngozi took a deep breath, her voice trembling as she began to explain. "Ngozi, before I had you, I was desperate. I had already been married twice, and both marriages ended because I couldn't have children. When I married your father, I was terrified that I would lose him too if I didn't give him a child. So, in my desperation, I went to a herbalist for help." Ngozi's eyes widened in surprise. She had never heard this part of her mother's story before. "The herbalist told me that it was possible for me to have a child," Mama Ngozi continued, her voice soft. "But she warned me that there would be negative effects. She didn't explain exactly what would happen, and I didn't ask. I was too focused on having a baby. I was willing to do anything to keep your father and finally become a mother. So I followed her instructions without thinking twice." Ngozi listened quietly, her heart heavy as she realized just how much her mother had gone through to bring her into the world. "After doing as the herbalist instructed, I found out I was pregnant with you," Mama Ngozi said, her eyes shining with emotion. "At first, everything seemed normal. I thought I was just gaining weight from pregnancy, like any woman would. But as the months passed, I started getting bigger and bigger. It wasn't just normal pregnancy weight. I was becoming unusually fat." She paused, her expression filled with pain as she recalled the changes. "And then I began to smell. It wasn't a normal smell, Ngozi. It was strong and unpleasant, and no matter how much I bathed, scrubbed, or used perfumes, it wouldn't go away." Ngozi's chest tightened as she heard her mother's words. She had no idea her mother had been suffering for so long. "I went to doctors, but they couldn't help me. They didn't know what was wrong. I tried everything, different soaps, ointments, traditional remedies. Nothing worked," Mama Ngozi said, her voice shaking. "Your father couldn't handle it. The smell became too much for him, and he left me. He didn't want to live with someone like me anymore." Ngozi gasped, tears filling her eyes. She hadn't known her father had left because of this. "But even though I lost him, I'm still grateful, Ngozi," Mama Ngozi said, her voice growing tender. "I'm grateful because I have you. You were worth every sacrifice I made. No matter how I look or smell now, having you was the best decision I ever made." Ngozi's eyes filled with tears as she realized the truth. The smell she had been so embarrassed by, the one that had caused her so much shame, was the result of her mother's love and sacrifice to have her. "I started selling fish to mask the smell," Mama Ngozi said, wiping her own eyes. "It wasn't easy, but I did it for you so we could survive." Ngozi's anger melted away, replaced by guilt and sadness. She had spent so much time being embarrassed by her mother that she had never stopped to understand the real reason behind it all. "I'm so sorry, Mama," Ngozi whispered, tears streaming down her face. She reached out and hugged her mother tightly. "I didn't know. I didn't understand." Mama Ngozi held her daughter close, stroking her hair. It's okay, my child, now you know, and I hope you can forgive me for the things I can't change. Ngozi nodded, her heart full of love for the mother who had sacrificed so much for her. Ngozi's perspective changed after hearing her mother's story. She no longer saw her as the smelly fish seller, but as a strong, brave woman who had faced so many hardships just to have her. She still heard the whispers at school, but they no longer hurt her the way they used to. She no longer felt ashamed. Ngozi even started helping her mother at the market after school. Together they would sell fish, and although the smell still lingered, it no longer felt like a burden. It was a reminder of Mama Ngozi's love, and Ngozi carried that with her proudly. Soon, people in the market began to notice the bond between mother and daughter. Some even stopped whispering and started buying fish from Mama Ngozi again, drawn in by her kindness and strength. In the end, Ngozi realized that true beauty wasn't about how someone looked or smelled. It was about the love they carried in their hearts. And Mama Ngozi had more love than anyone she knew. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more interesting stories like this. Thank you for watching and see you next time.